I've been a grief counselor for 9 years, and for the last 4 of those years, I've run an online support group for bereaved parents. It started small, 6 members, a private forum on a platform built specifically for therapeutic communities, end-to-end encrypted, no public profiles, no indexing by search engines. By the time this happened, we had 22 members across 11 countries, people who had lost children to illness, to accidents, to things I won't name here because they belong to the people who live them, and not to me. What happened in that group stayed in that group. That was the only rule, and in 4 years not one member had broken it, and I had built something I was genuinely proud of. A colleague named Rowan, who does cybersecurity consulting alongside his therapy practice, called me on a Thursday afternoon and asked if I had time to talk about something uncomfortable. That phrasing, something uncomfortable, is clinical language for something that doesn't have a clean category yet, and I said yes and cleared my afternoon. He told me he'd been doing a routine sweep of a dark web forum he monitored as part of a research project on the commodification of personal data, and that he'd found a thread he needed me to look at. He sent me the link through a secure browser he walked me through setting up, and I sat at my kitchen table and read what was there and felt something shift in my chest that hasn't fully shifted back. The thread was titled, in plain English, Grief Transcripts, Ongoing Collection. It had been active for 14 months. It contained verbatim transcripts of private conversations from my support group, organized by member, going back almost to the beginning of the forum's existence. Not summaries, word for word, timestamp accurate, including the conversations that happened in the private one-on-one channels I opened with members in crisis. Channels that were not visible to other members and were encrypted separately from the main forum. Someone had been recording everything, every message, every late-night breakdown typed at 2 in the morning when the silence got too loud, every piece of information shared in the absolute belief that it went nowhere except to the people in that room, and had been selling access to those transcripts to an audience of strangers on a forum where people paid a monthly subscription fee to read them. The thread had 41 subscribers, had been generating consistent revenue for over a year. In the comment section, subscribers discussed the members by their forum usernames, like characters in a series they were following week to week, speculating about their mental states, analyzing their coping patterns, rating which member's grief was the most compelling to read that month, arguing about developments in real people's real suffering as though it were serialized fiction they were entitled to have opinions about. One comment, about a member who had recently described the anniversary of her daughter's death, read, "This one is building to something, can feel it." It had 7 replies agreeing. I read for about 20 minutes before I had to stop. Then I called Rowan back and asked him how to find out who was running it. He said that part was difficult and possibly impossible without law enforcement involvement, but that based on the structure of the thread and the timing of the posts, it was almost certainly someone with direct access to the forum, not a hacker who had breached the platform from outside, but a member or administrator who was logged in legitimately and copying material as it was posted. He said the transcripts were too current and too complete to have come from a breach. Someone inside the group was doing this deliberately and had been for over a year. I sat with that for a long time. 22 members. People I had come to know over 4 years. People whose children's names I knew, whose worst nights I had witnessed, who had trusted me with the kind of honesty that only exists when you are completely certain you are not being watched. One of them had been watching the whole time. One of them had been sitting in our group sessions, reading everyone else's most private words, and every week for 14 months had been copying those words into a document and uploading them to a forum full of strangers who were waiting for the next installment. I went through every member in my mind, one by one, and I could not land on a single person who felt possible. People who have lost children carry a specific kind of rawness that I have learned to recognize in 9 years of this work, and every person in that group had it. I could not find the seam where performance ended and that rawness began in any of them. And I have spent a long time since wondering whether that says something about my professional judgment, or whether it says something about how completely certain kinds of people can inhabit a role they've chosen to play. I contacted the platform's security team that evening and told them what I'd found. forwarded the link through their secure reporting channel, and they froze the forum within 2 hours and began a full internal audit. Within 48 hours, they had identified the source, a member who had joined in the second month of the group's existence, one of the longest-standing members, someone I had personally welcomed and supported through what presented as an extended period of grief that I now had no way of knowing how much of was real and how much was the cover story for why they needed to be in the room. The platform handed everything to law enforcement. I was told the case was referred to the relevant jurisdiction and that I would receive updates on significant developments. I have received no updates. It has been 11 months. What I have done in those 11 months is tell each member individually what happened, which was the hardest set of conversations I have ever had in 9 years of work that involves almost exclusively hard conversations. I wrote a script beforehand, the way I sometimes do for disclosures, and then I threw it away, because every person deserved a real conversation rather than a managed one. Most of them went quiet for a long time after I explained it. That particular silence of someone trying to locate themselves in information that has changed the architecture of something they thought was safe. One woman asked me to describe the comment section, what the subscribers had specifically said about her posts, and I told her as gently as I could that I didn't think reading those comments would serve her healing, and she said she understood, and then asked me again, differently, and I told her again that I couldn't do that to her, and she thanked me, and I could hear that she was crying, though she never said so. A father in Australia who had lost his son 2 years prior and had shared things in our forum that he told me he had never said to another living person asked me one question before I had finished explaining. Did they use his son's name in the comments? I told him yes. He said thank you, quietly, like he'd needed to know the worst of it all at once rather than discover it later, and ended the call. I sat with my phone in my hand for a long time after that one, before I called the next person on the list. The group no longer exists. I closed it the same week, and I have not reopened it, and I don't know if I will. I still do individual counseling, still believe in the therapeutic value of shared grief, still believe that most people sitting in a room with other people's pain are there because they recognize it from their own life, and not because they want to own it. But I also know now that a closed room online is not a closed room, and that there is a market for suffering that I had not previously understood the scale of, and that somewhere out there, 41 people paid a subscription fee to read the worst moments of 22 grieving parents, as though their pain was a series they were entitled to follow to its conclusion. I think about those 41 people more than I think about the one who sold it to them. The seller I can categorize, however inadequately. The buyers are the part I can't fully close the door on. Ordinary people, presumably with ordinary lives, who found a forum selling transcripts of bereaved parents' private support group and decided that was something they wanted to pay for and come back to every month. I don't know what you call that, or where it lives in a person. I don't know that I want to. This happened when I was 16, which means it happened in the era before every school had an assembly about internet safety, and before parents had any real vocabulary for what their kids could access from a bedroom with the door closed. I'm telling it now because enough time has passed that I can see the shape of it clearly, and because I think about it more than I probably should for something that, on the surface, resolved without any lasting damage. The surface is the part I'm less certain about now than I was at the time. There were 4 of us. Me, my best friend Callum, whose laptop it was, a girl named Sophie who'd brought the idea up in the first place after watching a YouTube video about people who'd accessed the dark web and what they'd found there, and a boy called Ryan, who came along because Callum went nowhere without Ryan at that point in their friendship. It was a Friday evening in late autumn. Callum's parents were out for the night, and we had the house to ourselves and the particular kind of restless energy that 16-year-olds generate when they have too much time and not enough to fill it with. Sophie showed us the YouTube video on her phone, one of those dramatic, narrated things with a black screen and ominous music. And by the end of it, we'd collectively decided we were going to try it ourselves. Not to buy anything, not to find anything specific, just to see if we could get there and look around, the way you dare each other to knock on a door and run. The dare was the point. The destination barely mattered. We spent about 40 minutes trying to find it through Google first, which tells you exactly how little we understood about what we were looking for. We searched things like how to get to the dark web and dark web access, and read through results that were mostly news articles and Reddit threads and explainers written for curious people who had no intention of actually going anywhere. Sophie found a thread that explained the basics, that you needed a specific browser called Tor that routed your connection through multiple servers to anonymize it, that the sites you accessed ended in .onion rather than .com, that you couldn't get there through Chrome or Safari no matter how hard you looked. We downloaded the Tor browser onto Callum's laptop, which took longer than expected because his connection was slow. And while we waited, we watched another YouTube video and ate most of the snacks Callum's mom had left in the kitchen, and felt the specific excitement of doing something we'd been told, obliquely, not to do. The Tor browser looked different from what we were used to. Slower, more stripped back, a search interface that felt like something from 10 years earlier. We found a directory of .onion links through a Surface web forum, the kind of curated list that exists specifically for people who are curious but don't know where to start. And we looked through it together, crowded around Callum's laptop on his bedroom floor. Most of the links were either dead or loaded as blank pages, which was anticlimactic enough that Ryan started losing interest almost immediately. We found a forum that appeared to be a general discussion board, read a few threads without fully understanding the context, felt the mild disappointment of something that had been built up significantly in our imagination turning out to be mostly text on a screen. Sophie wanted to go deeper. Callum said he had the laptop, so he was in charge of what we clicked. We went a little deeper. I don't know exactly which link it was. We clicked through several in a short period, and I couldn't tell you now which specific one caused what happened next, and I couldn't tell you then either, which was part of what made it so disorienting. One moment we were looking at a forum index page, and then there was a redirect, the kind where the page changes before you've made a choice, and the new page that loaded was dark, almost entirely black, with text we read the first 2 lines of before Callum minimized the window. None of us said anything for a second. Sophie said, "Close it." Callum closed it. Then the pop-ups started. Not pop-ups the way you get on a normal website, which are annoying but recognizable and dismissible. These were different in a way that was hard to articulate in the moment, and that I've spent time since trying to describe accurately. They appeared in the corners of the screen, small, with no obvious close button, and the content of them was text rather than images, fragments of what looked like code or log data, strings of numbers and letters that meant nothing to us, but that felt, in the atmosphere of that room at that moment, like something was recording rather than displaying. One of them appeared to show a file path from Callum's own system, a folder name I recognized as something on his desktop. And that was when the mood in the room changed completely from excited to something I can only describe as the specific cold of understanding you've done something you can't immediately undo. Callum tried to close the browser. It didn't close cleanly. He tried force quitting it, and it hung for almost a minute before the screen went to the regular desktop, and during that minute, none of us spoke. Ryan, who had been the most skeptical about the whole thing, was the one who said what all of us were thinking. What did that just do? Nobody had an answer. Callum tried to open the browser again, and it loaded slowly, and then showed us a screen that wasn't the Tor interface we'd downloaded, but something else. A page we didn't recognize, with text in a language none of us could identify. He closed the laptop. We sat on Callum's bedroom floor for a while and talked through what to do. Sophie wanted to call someone, and then couldn't identify who to call. Ryan wanted to shut the laptop in a drawer and pretend nothing had happened. I said Callum should format the laptop and reinstall everything, which was a word I knew from hearing my older brother talk about computers, and which I understood in a vague but directionally correct way as the nuclear option, the thing you did when you wanted to erase everything and start from scratch. Callum asked if that would fix it. I said I thought so. None of us actually knew. He formatted it that night, looked up the steps on his phone, went through the process carefully, reinstalled the operating system from a recovery drive his dad had made when the laptop was new. It took about 2 hours, during which we ate the rest of the food and barely talked. And when it was done, the laptop came back up clean and new looking. The desktop empty, the browser history gone. Everything reset to the state it had been in before any of us had thought to look up how to access something we had no business looking for. We all agreed it was fine. We said it to each other with the conviction of people who need to hear it, rather than people who believe it. I went home around midnight and went to bed and told myself it was fine. And for a while I believed it. The way you believe things you've decided to believe. Callum used the laptop normally for the rest of the school year and never mentioned anything strange happening with it again. Sophie told a few people at school what we'd done in a way that made it sound more dramatic and conclusive than it had been. Ryan never brought it up again. On the surface, nothing came of it. The laptop was formatted. The session was wiped. We were 16 and stupid and lucky, and that was the end of it. The thing I come back to, years later, is the file path in that pop-up. The one that showed what appeared to be a folder from Callum's desktop. I've learned enough since then to understand that a page loading in a browser can't automatically read your file system. That's not how it works. And what we saw was almost certainly a generic-looking string that our frightened 16-year-old brains pattern-matched onto something familiar. Almost certainly. But I also know enough now to understand that the point of something appearing in the corner of your screen on the dark web isn't always to show you something true. Sometimes, it's to show you something that makes you close the laptop and walk away and format the drive and feel like you've cleaned it up. And I know that certain things, once initiated, don't need the browser to stay open. I don't know if any of that applies to what happened in Callum's room that Friday. I don't know that it doesn't. I still have his number. I've never asked him if anything strange happened to that laptop after we all went home, and he's never brought it up. And I've decided that for now, I'd rather not know the answer than know it and have to do something about it. We'd been seeing each other for about 2 months when I found the notebook in my car. Not hidden, just left on the back seat the way things get left when someone's been in a hurry. A small, black notebook. The kind you buy in a 3-pack at any drugstore. Unremarkable enough that I almost threw it in the door pocket without opening it. What stopped me was the URL written on the inside cover in his handwriting, and below it a username. And below that, what looked like a password, written in a shorthand I almost didn't recognize as a password at all. I know his handwriting. I'd seen it on a birthday card he'd left with flowers 2 weeks earlier, and the handwriting in the notebook was his. I sat in my parked car outside my building for a long time holding it before I went inside. I want to describe what the 2 months before this had been like, because it matters. And because I think the people who most need to hear this part are the ones who would have felt exactly what I felt and called it something good. He was attentive in a way that felt, at the time, like a quality I'd been waiting a long time for in someone. He remembered small things I mentioned once in passing. A restaurant I'd said I wanted to try. The name of a colleague I'd complained about. A detail from a story about my childhood that I hadn't expected anyone to retain. He was always available without being suffocating, always present without seeming to need anything back, which I now understand is a specific kind of imbalance that should read as a flag and that I read as maturity. He asked questions that felt interested and particular, not generic, the kind that make you feel that the person asking has actually been listening rather than waiting their turn to talk. I told him things I don't usually tell people quickly, because he made the space for it and seemed to handle what I put into that space with care. Looking back across all of that now with the 41 posts as a reference document, I can locate almost every disclosure I made and find the corresponding post where he reported it to the forum and the thread where they discussed what to do with it. The care I felt was real. What it was in service of was not. I didn't use my own phone or my home computer to access the URL. Something made me drive to the public library the following morning and use one of their terminals, which I now think was the right instinct, even if I couldn't have articulated why at the time. The URL resolved to a forum I had to create a guest account to browse, and I used the username and password from the notebook because I needed to understand what I was looking at from the inside. The forum was structured around what it called documentation, written accounts of relationships, encounters, and interactions, posted by members and rated and commented on by others. Not a dating advice forum, not a therapy community. Something else. The posts read like case studies written by someone who was observing rather than participating, clinical in tone, detailed in a way that felt like measurement, and the comment sections were collaborative, with members offering suggestions and modifications and responses to the situation described, the way people workshop a project. I found his account by the username from the notebook. He had 41 posts going back 14 months, which was 12 months before we met. I started at the beginning and read forward, and by the 8th post, I understood that the subjects of his posts were real women he had dated or was currently dating, described in enough detail to be fully identifiable to anyone who knew them, though their names were replaced with letters. By the 20th post, I was in them. My first appearance was from 6 weeks into our relationship, in a post that described a conversation we'd had on a Wednesday evening in enough detail that I could place it to the specific night, the specific restaurant, the specific topic, reproduced with an accuracy that told me he had written it down immediately after. The comments underneath offered analysis and follow-up questions. He responded to each one. I read all 41 posts. It took me 2.5 hours at that library terminal, and I didn't move except once to get a glass of water from the fountain near the entrance. The posts documented the full arc of our relationship as he had experienced and reported it. My habits, my reactions, the things I'd told him about my past and my family, the way I responded in situations that I now understood he had designed specifically to generate a response worth documenting. There were posts structured as experiments. He described doing or saying a specific thing, posted my reaction as data, and the forum discussed what that data suggested about my personality and psychology with the analytical tone of people working through a problem together. Comments offered hypotheses. He thanked them, confirmed or corrected their readings, and returned in subsequent posts to report on what he'd done with their suggestions. The forum wasn't just watching, it was contributing. The relationship I thought I was in with one person had an audience of dozens who had been advising on it from the beginning, and I had been the only one who didn't know. There were 2 posts that I keep coming back to more than the others. The first was from early in our relationship, maybe 3 weeks after we met, in which he described asking me a question about a difficult period in my childhood, something I had answered honestly because he had seemed genuinely moved by it, and posted my answer in full for the forum to analyze. The comments discussed what my answer revealed about my attachment patterns, and how that information could be used to build trust more efficiently. He replied that he'd found it useful and had already applied it. The second post was the last one, 4 days before I found the notebook, in which he described the current state of what he called the project, and asked the forum what kind of pressure he should introduce next and when. 11 people responded with specific, considered suggestions. I recognized 2 of those suggestions as things he had already done to me in the preceding week. He had asked for advice, received it, acted on it, and was back for the next phase. I left the library, sat in my car, and called my sister. I told her everything in one unbroken account that took about 20 minutes, and she listened without interrupting. And when I finished, she asked me one question. Did I know where he was right now? I didn't. I called him from the car and said I needed to cancel our plans for that evening, gave a reason that was ordinary enough not to raise anything, and he was pleasant and understanding and said we'd reschedule. I went to my sister's house and stayed there for 4 days. I never went back to the relationship. I blocked him on everything the same night and had a friend collect the things he had at my apartment while I was at work because I didn't trust myself to be calm in the same room as him, and I didn't trust him to be predictable in the same room as someone who had read 41 posts about his methods. I reported the forum through a cybercrime reporting channel my sister helped me find. I was told the report had been received and logged. I don't know what happened to it after that, and I've stopped expecting to find out. The forum is still accessible as of the last time I checked, which was 6 months ago, because I made a decision to stop checking after that. I did not confront him, and I do not intend to. There is no version of that conversation that ends with me having more safety than I have now, and safety is the only thing I'm managing for at this point. I've been in therapy since the month after this happened, and my therapist has a specific word for the structure of what he was doing that I won't repeat here, because I don't want to reduce it to a label before you've had a chance to understand what it actually felt like from inside it. Which is that for 2 months, I was seen more closely than I had ever been seen by anyone, and the seeing was entirely in service of something I was never meant to know about, and the attention I had mistaken for intimacy was a form of work. The notebook is still in my apartment. I've thought many times about throwing it away, and haven't, because some part of me keeps thinking it might matter later, and I'm not ready to decide that it won't.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing content. Thanks for watching.